Jenny LaFerriere. She can then reintroduce herself. Really fantastic. Runs and owns her own strength and conditioning business. Was a player for UNE, NCAA Division III team. Now plays for Beantown. And as I said, runs her own business, is crackerjack on the top of things for strength and conditioning for the sport of rugby. And I just am thrilled to have you back a second year. So
Third year.
Third year.
Third year.
My mistake. Yeah. All right, so hopefully people will trickle in. They do have a couple more minutes, but we do run on Lombardi time. So
quickly.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, get out your little notebooks and take some notes and, you know, digest this when you get home. Think about it. If there's one thing I can do to be a better rugby player that's not on the field, what is it? You know, is it sleep? Is it hydration? Is it food? Or is it a piece of this? Or do I do a little bit of each? And all of a sudden next year, woo, I'm at a whole nother level. Because I've seen that happen to her.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Alrighty, everyone. Like Mary Beth said, my name is Jenny. My pronouns are she, her. This is my third year speaking at the Polar Bear Rugby Camp, and I'm very excited. The first year, I didn't really know what I was doing or how to talk in front of you guys. It was also like a really small group. It was in 2021, post-COVID. There was like 15 of you. So now, seeing, like 3 years later, seeing the growth of the program and the camp, it's really awesome. First, I want to start off with a question. Raise your hands. Who here has weight trained before? So like used the gym. Awesome. Go ahead, put your hands down. Who here has done it on their own? Okay, and then who here has done it either with a small group or like a personal trainer or some sort of coach leading them? This is awesome. I love that. I like the big hands. Okay, so my kind of, well, I guess I can break down my experience. Like Mary Beth said, I played for the University of New England. We started off club my freshman year in 2016, and then going into our sophomore year, myself and my teammates were a part of the inaugural varsity season there. I played varsity there for 3 years, and I played for Portland Rugby last season, and this season now I'm playing for Beantown in the WPL. So I was an exercise science major at the University of New England, and that is what I continue to do today. I am a speed and strength coach. I worked up in Brunswick for a while, and now I do my own thing down in Yarmouth. I am the strength coach at the high school, and I own my own business, Main Gains. So I'm here to talk to you about strength and conditioning, especially for rugby at your age and the importance of it, but I'm also here to answer any and all of your questions. So there are pamphlets. I hope I made enough. There might be a little less, but you can find me on my Instagram on there. I attach a lot of business cards. You can go to the website if you have questions further on down the road. Ready to do this thing? Ready to get knowledge dropped on you? Because it's about to happen. Okay, so when we think about rugby, what are some of the words that come to mind to you guys, just to shout them out, when you think of the game of rugby? Tackling. Just give me another word when you think of rugby. Agile. Someone say speed. Okay. Endurance. Drive. Strength. What about like rough? Like hard. Like rugby is hard. It's 80 minutes non-stop, except for when you score, you get a little bit of a water break and then a 10-minute halftime. Like games are long, games are hard. The whole point of the gym is to supplement our rugby skills and our ability to express everything that we're training in the gym on the pitch. Okay, so sometimes you hear this word called transfer. And it's like, what is it that we are doing in the weight room that's going to transfer to the field? So training things like speed, like power, like strength, right? All of those things are going to make us better rugby players, in theory, because it's going to allow us to express the skills that we have in a more explosive manner, in a faster manner, right? If you have a really accurate pass, how much more dangerous is that if you can sidestep the first defender, and then I almost sidestepped him, and then make another defender bite, right? And then you can be accurate with that pass. That's that plyometric agility thing. How much more deadly are you if you're able to cut that outside corner on the wing because of the speed and then maybe cut back in and evade that defender, right? Rugby especially is all about finding space and evasion on offense. So in the weight room, how I like to break down my sessions, there's 5 key pillars to my own personal training and how I train my athletes. The first one is speed and plyometrics. I used to be very, very slow. I'm like very, very, very slow. And I was bashing my head against a wall for years trying to figure out how to get faster. And how I did it was conditioning, right? I would, what I thought was sprint as fast as I could, like 100 yards down the pitch. And then I would like rest 10 seconds and then just try to do that. I was gassed every single time. I have since learned and experienced that in order to get faster, you need max effort, short bursts, full rest. Okay, so when you are thinking for speed sessions and how can I improve how fast I can run, no more than, honestly, maybe about a 40-yard sprint, and then for every 10 yards you sprint, it's 1 minute rest. So you do this at the beginning of your sessions, your training sessions, because that's when you're most fresh. When you're training speed, it's very much neurological, meaning the connection from your brain to your muscles. How fast can your brain tell your muscles to go? And then how fast can your muscles actually express that force? So you want to do that when you're fresh. So we train speed and our plyometrics first. What are some examples of plyometrics? Shout them out to me. Does anyone know? Do we know what plyometrics are? Box jumps. Great example. Anything else? Hurdles?
Yeah.
Yes.
No. The smaller ones that you do a lot of footwork. Ladders?
Oh, okay. Yeah, speed ladders can find their way in a training program, and I'm actually going to tell you why I'm hesitant with ladders. But they still find a way in my program. What do ladders do? And, like, what do you guys think it does?
Trains footwork.
Trains footwork. What about it?
Your coordination.
Coordination. They're really great for coordination. So if we think of drills, we want to have a progression for everything. So the ladders are really great for coordination. They're great for warm-ups. They're great for figuring, like, getting your feet ready to go fast. What do speed ladders lack? Change in height, yeah. They lack reaction, and they lack force production. Okay, it's a big word. But when we think of rugby, if you want to get from point A to point B, you have to move your body as fast as possible to that position, right? In a speed ladder or an agility ladder, you're just going in a straight line. There's not a whole lot of get somewhere fast, get somewhere powerful. So it's okay to start with speed ladders, but then we have to transfer that into a different drill, right? That might be a partner race or a sprint where you're trying to compete with someone else, right? Because we now want to use that footwork in a more realistic setting. Nod your head if that kind of makes sense. You can also shake your head no if you're like, I'm still lost, okay? I'm not saying speed ladders are bad. There's just a time and place, usually at the beginning of the warm-up. All right. So we have speed, plyometrics. We're done. That takes about, I don't know, 15 minutes. Next up, we move on to our power exercises and our strength exercises. When I say power, in the weight room sense, what are some exercises that you guys think of?
Deadlift.
Deadlift, I would consider that more of a strength exercise, but you're on there.
So the medicine ball slams.
Medicine ball slams, that's a power exercise. Sled push, if you're sprinting with it, going hard, that's a power exercise. Give me some other ones. Has anyone ever done an Olympic lift? Like a clean? Yeah, that's a explosive power movement. So box jumps are also a power movement. They're kind of like a hybrid of a plyometric and a power exercise. loaded jumps, whether you hold a dumbbell in each hand, you can slam medicine balls, you can chuck medicine balls at the wall. I love doing that, especially for rugby. Power, we really want to think about 2 ways to express power. When you express power, you want to be able to move heavy weight as fast as you can, even though it might not actually be moving fast. Imagine hitting another player who's bigger than you, right? It takes power to hit them fast, even though they might not move that much. And there's moving moderate to lightweight even faster, like throwing a rugby ball, right? Takes a lot of power, get a lot of zip on the ball, make that thing go, okay? So we train our power. That's gonna take maybe 10 minutes. When we train power, you want low reps, 3 to 5 reps, because it has to be snappy. Just like speed, you want to be fresh when you're doing this. Okay, so if you're doing power exercises like box jumps, medicine ball slams, and you're going from one exercise to the next, and you're out of breath, and then you're just slogging through it, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So just like sprints, you want to be rested when you do power. We all on the same page there? Cool. Moving on to our strength. Deadlift. Fantastic exercise for strength. What are some other strength exercises? Squats.
Like
Bench press. Pull-ups. Curls. Yep, I like curls. Our strength components. This is more of a time where you can grind out some heavy reps, right? We're trying to move heavy weight. We're relative to you, right? Something that's heavy for me might not be heavy for you, and vice versa. So when you're doing strength, it's okay to start to feel a little bit more fatigued than you normally would with power and speed training in our sprints. Rep range. Do you guys know what reps are? Yeah, we've all yeah. Okay. How many reps do you think you should train for strength? Lower reps. What counts as low reps? 3 to 5, I like that. Just like our power exercises, this is strength. We're trying to lift the most amount of weight that we can, right? There's time and place for higher reps, and we'll get there. But if we're trying, let's think of it this way. If you can lift a heavy weight, everything underneath that is gonna go faster and feel smoother and lighter for you. So if we increase the amount that we can lift, underneath just becomes that much easier. So that prop that used to demolish you and like treat you like a speed bump, you are now, I don't know, a brick wall, right? And you can resist them a lot more. Right, so we have our strength, and then we kind of get into what I call successories or like muscular endurance. This is more of our middle rep range, 8 to 12 reps, supporting exercises, things that we can get a little more nitty-gritty with, things like curls, things like planks, our core exercises, and let's see, even other lower body exercises can be supporting exercise. So you want a main strength movement of your day, and then you want muscular endurance, 8 to 12 reps. The last 2 things I'm going to leave you with on how I structure workouts is core and neck strength and conditioning. So let's go over core and neck strength. How important do you think those are for rugby? Wicked important, right? There's this cool statistic, and for every pound of neck strength you gain, your risk of a concussion decreases 10%, right? That's huge. So how do you train your neck? You know what I mean? Like, when you first think about that, it's like, I don't know, that's weird. One of the ways you do that is resisting movement. So there's a lot of different exercises you can do, but like grabbing a band, like a big band that you use for pull-ups, attaching it to a rig, and then you look silly, but you put it around your head, right? And the band is pulling you this way, and you have to resist that, and you're like straining in the gym, and everyone's like, what the heck is that crazy person doing? But you're like, I play rugby, like I am crazy. Right? So we want to train our neck to resist movement, because that is what it does in rugby. Every time you get hit, you clench up, you're resisting movement because we want to avoid that whiplash. Our core does two things. It resists movement, just like the neck, but it also helps transfer energy from your lower body to your upper body and vice versa. Okay, so when I make a hit, when I make a pass, it all starts from the legs and then you finish through your upper body, right? You're not making a pass here, well, I hope not, and just using your arms, right? It starts from your hips, you throw your hips, and you finish through with your hands, right? So our core, if we have a strong core, it helps that transfer. We have no energy leaks, okay? Because your body is strong enough to handle that force, that power. The last thing is conditioning. Everyone's favorite part of the day. Rugby is an interesting sport because you need to be able to play a long time, but you also need to be able to do a lot of short bursts, okay? So there's two types of conditioning. Does anyone know what those types are? Interval, okay, I'll count that as high intensity. What's the other one? Low intensity, yeah, right? So we have high intensity and then we have low intensity. If you look at your training week, 70 to 80% of your conditioning should be low intensity. Why? So you don't get injured. Yep, that's good. It builds a base, okay? So if you're really going hard, like hard as you can in that high intensity, you can't really do it all that often because it takes so much out of you because it's that hard. Like that's how hard high intensity training should be. So you do it maybe 1 to 2 times a week. The rest, that low intensity conditioning, that's all meant to build your base. So kind of like the strength component where you're trying to lift the most so everything underneath feels easier. The low intensity stuff builds this big base so that way in the game your heart rate doesn't jack up as high as soon. Make sense? You're not super like, you know, when you get to the point where you're like kind of not hyperventilating, but you're just breathing a lot, breathing fast, and everything's just really overwhelming. If you build that base, it doesn't happen as soon, right? You can last longer into the game before you're like, okay, I'm really starting to feel this. So what are some ways that come to your mind when you think about low intensity conditioning? Yep, if we're still in the weight room, let's more high rep stuff, low weight.
Kind of like a 2-mile run, but slow.
Yeah, right. So I'm not opposed to you guys going for runs as your conditioning, like long runs, okay? But they have to be easy. Usually when people, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go for a long run for my conditioning. You're like out of breath and gassed by the end of it. Kind of defeats the purpose, right? You're supposed to feel like, I could probably go another mile. It wasn't too hard. That's how your low intensity conditioning should be feeling. My personal favorite way to train conditioning is something called tempos. So you can do a specific distance, you can do a specific time, but you run and you do it right on the rugby pitch. You run 50 meters and then you walk the rest of the way. Once you get down there, turn around, run 50 meters, walk the rest of the way. Do this maybe like 8 times. Take a 2-minute break, do it again. Shorten the distance, lengthen the distance. You get freedom in that. The goal though is to all do it while breathing through your nose. That's how you know it's low intensity. The moment you start to have to breathe through your mouth, your body's struggling to get oxygen, right? And that's a sign that your intensity is going up, right? So when you're doing those high intensity workouts, totally fine. Breathe through your mouth. All good. Your body needs that, right? Low intensity, breathe through your nose as much as you can. Whether it's in through the nose, out through the mouth, I'm cool with that, but that's probably a warning sign that we're getting up to a high intensity. Does that kind of make sense? We putting the puzzle pieces together in our brain on how we should train? Okay, quick recap. If I'm doing a training session, what do I start with? Sprints. I didn't tell you this, but how many reps? Just like power, 3 to 5, right? You don't need to go crazy. How much rest? Full rest. You want to feel recovered. 1 minute for every 10 yards you sprint, every 10 meters you sprint. And that's an easy, you do the sprint, you slow down, you walk back. It's probably enough time. Okay, and I mean like walk back. This is not. That's not it. Okay, we do our sprints. Then what do? Power and plyometrics, right? Hurdles, med ball slams, dumbbell jumps, trap bar jumps. We do that. Done. Now what? Strength. How many reps? 3 to 5. How many sets? 3 to 5. I like this. And then strength done. Now what? Muscular endurance. How many reps? 8 to 12. How many sets? 8 to 12? No. 2 to 4. That one you don't need as much. And then finally you can finish off with some either high intensity conditioning or low intensity conditioning depending on the day. What are your guys' takes on, no, I'm going to reword that. How often do you think you should work out in the gym? Forget, I'm hearing 4 days a week, I'm hearing 3, 5, 6 to 5, okay.
In the middle of a sports season.
Oh my gosh, say that again, say that again.
It depends on like if you're in the middle of your season or not.
It depends on the time of year, if you're in season, if you're out of season, how far out are you from your season. But let's take right now, for example, right? None of you are like, this is like camp, right? None of you are playing actively right now outside of this. Oh, maybe a few of you. Okay, well, say you're not, okay? It's the summertime, there's no games going on. That's a time when you can spend more time in the gym because your body's not going through as much physical demand on the rugby pitch. It's a great time to work on skills, ball handling, kicking, passing, things like that, and spend time in the gym. I'd say 3 to 4 days a week in the gym. No more than 4. As an athlete, you guys don't need it. There's so many other things that you have to pay attention to and that you're trying to get better at, right? Trying to do any more than that, it starts to become overwhelming, your body starts to get run down, and it's hard to recover from. And then we're just digging ourselves in a hole, okay? All right, we have transitioned to preseason. How many days a week do you think you should train in preseason? 2 to 3, I like that, yep, 2 to 3, at least 2. In preseason, that's probably the most amount of work that you're gonna be doing in regards to actual rugby stuff, right? You're trying to get cohesive with your team, you're trying to refine skills, that way you don't have to think about it when you get in season. And you're gonna feel a little bit more banged up than normal. So now we're kind of like, we can still get stronger going 2 to 3 days a week, but priority is rugby. In season, what's the goal? How many days? What would you say? 1 to 2. I think that's a solid option. If you can squeeze a third one in, totally fine, but not necessary. Let's say games are on Saturday. What days of the week would you do your sessions, ideally?
Tuesday, Thursday.
Tuesday, Thursday? Perfect, yeah. It kind of depends on your schedule and what you can fit in. If you have practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's typically what clubs do. If you have time, totally fine to stack your workout days and your practice days. Make that high intensity day a high intensity day. You go to practice or you work out first and then go to practice. Either way, you get it both done. And then, because your body's already going, right? It's already revved up. Imagine you're turning on an oven. Hey, would you rather just like cook all the food in one go? Or would you have to like turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on over and over and over again? It takes a lot of energy to do that. So if you can stack them, awesome. If you can't, it's no big deal. Make it work with maybe a Monday and a Wednesday. Friday, you could do something, but if you were to do something you play on Saturday, you want to make sure that Friday is kind of light. You want to feel good when you go into the game on Saturday. And then it brings us back to, I guess, playoffs, which you'd still be going in 1 to 2 days a week. And then off season, boom, we're back to 3 to 4. Cool? All right. Questions from you guys. When you go into the gym, training for sport is different than training for aesthetics or looks or like bodybuilding and things like that. And it's okay to do both, but we just have to know what our goals are. So if you want to be a better rugby player, it's probably better to train like an athlete. If you're in the off season, early off season, and you just need a break, it's okay to kind of switch up your workouts and be like, I'm just gonna do maybe like legs on one day, upper body the next day, take a day off, legs, upper body, right? There's so many different splits out there that you can do. My word of advice, if you're going through 2 to 4 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week, make it full body, right? So you do your sprints, then you do your power, your strength exercise, lower body strength, upper body pushing strength, upper body pulling strength. Okay, so say you do squats, and then you do bench press, and then you do chin-ups, right? Full body. Because what happens if you train legs on Monday, and then, oh no, you can't go to the gym for 5 days, and then the next day you go, it's like, do you do upper body? Do you do legs again? You could go 2 weeks without doing one body part. If you're only going 2 or 3 days a week, make it full body. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say for you guys. And I want to open it up to questions about training. Anything that comes to mind.
So, I know there's like bulking and like cutting and there's a mix of things like that. And I used to do that a lot. I go to the gym a lot.
Yep.
But now that I'm more into rugby as like a full like all-time good thing, what would you say for like almost like a schedule? Like, would you do all of these things like in one day, like a speed, a power, strength, like conditioning, or would you have them more separate? Like, I know that's what you were talking about.
Yep.
But like, those are all like categories that I would always seem like to be different, like even like times of the year. But would you start putting them all together, kind of as like a one like whole training set in like
Yep.
every day go to the gym?
Yeah. So the question was, when you are making these training schedules, would I do speed, power, strength, and endurance all in one session, or are there different times of the year where I focus on one thing? And I do them all at the same time. The biggest reason being, if I had, let's see, off season way over here, and I didn't do much speed work, and then I am just doing like high rep stuff, and then all of a sudden we're almost near preseason, I'm focusing more on strength. Well, if we remember correctly, if I practice strength over here, because that's what it is, when you're in the gym, you're basically just practicing expressing strength, okay? So if I'm still doing strength stuff over here, my ability to get stronger and more powerful will translate better and get faster as we get closer to the season, okay? Versus if I'm not sprinting here, and then I do strength stuff here, and then it's preseason here, and now I'm just deciding to sprint, well, it's been months since the last time that you sprint. So you really think you're gonna be faster? You gotta practice it, right? So I call it microdosing. If you microdose these like attributes, these training qualities that we're trying to develop into your programs throughout the year, one never gets underdeveloped. They're all rising together. And if anything, especially you guys at your age, speed is a really big thing, okay? So you should be sprinting at least twice a week. Like hard sprints, full rest, Okay. The speed is one of those things. Have you ever heard the saying, was it, the high tide lifts all boats or something like that? Or it's like a big, whatever. Speed's gonna bring all of those other attributes up, right? Because your body's ability to handle large amounts of force at high speeds gets better. And that's exactly what rugby is. It's high force at high speeds. And if you can handle that, your risk of injury goes down. Your ability to be a bigger threat on the pitch goes up. So I do train all of them. Okay. You got any other questions? Thoughts on pre-workout? How old are you? Don't do it. I know that you guys, I'm not oblivious to the fact that you guys probably drink Celsius or some sort of energy drink. You know what I mean? I know it's crazy for me to say, don't drink caffeine, don't have any caffeine. I will say, if you are going to have caffeine, limit the amount that you're having. You don't want it every day. There's a bunch of different reasons that I'm not going to get into because I don't have enough time, but try not to become, I'll say, reliant on it. Sometimes it's going to suck, sometimes you're going to be really tired for your training session, and that's okay, you just have to get through it. Okay, so as much as you can, try not to have caffeine, especially pre-workout. None of that, okay?
We'll go out and so then I'll have like full practice. What is that look like?
It's a great question. So if you were playing another sport, like two sports at the same time, because I know a lot of you guys do that now. At that point, priority is still sport. So same thing, 1 to 2 workouts, get in, get out, right? You do the bare minimum because you want to feel good. And we want to keep progressing as much as we can with what we've got. Because that's just one snippet of your year. That's only maybe a few months, hopefully, that you're super busy playing 2 sports at the same time. You make it through that, and then you're like, okay, now I can kind of take my foot off the gas sports-wise and put my foot on the gas weight room training-wise. Great question. For training, okay. Say it again.
So like training your power.
In tackling. Okay. I love the sled. 5 to 10 yard sprints with a heavy sled. I really enjoy that. Any sort of plank variation, I'm a huge fan of to strengthen your core. No more than 30 seconds though. I think something that core exercises get a bad rep for is that a Celsius right there? Sorry, it just looked like one, so it is! So I got distracted. Back to the core exercise. So I think where people get training the core wrong and abs, I call it abs, I don't care, is that they do a lot of high rep stuff or long duration. So you're trying to hold a plank for as long as you can, and then we have really saggy backs, and then you're just really training at that point, right? Don't be afraid to make your core work heavy and hard, right? So if you're gonna do a 30-second plank and you're able to keep your core in position, no saggy hips, right? No arched backs, put a weight on there, a plate, right? Start with 10 pounds. And maybe you can only hold that for 10 seconds and then you collapse and you're like, oh my God. And then you do it for 15 seconds. And then 20, right? And then you finally get up to 30 and you're like, okay, well I'm not just gonna keep sitting here with a weight on my back. I'm gonna increase the weight. And go back down to 10 seconds. Right? So there's ways you can train your core that can be more efficient than doing high rep stuff. But in regards to transferring power from the tackle, definitely sled sprints, resisted core training side planks and weighted planks, so you can plate on your back, and then practicing tackling. I think sometimes the disconnect is that people think automatically that the strength that they're getting in the weight room is going to like easily transfer to the pitch. And it'll happen, especially if you're really new to both. But there's gonna come to a point where like the strength that you're getting over here, you have to practice. And like then that's going to get better at expressing the skill that you want to do. So that's how we kind of make that transfer from the weight room to the pitch. Did that answer your question? Okay. This is a solid question, and it's going to kind of transition my strength and conditioning talk into more of a nutrition talk, which is on the other side of the pamphlet, for those of you who are lucky enough to get pamphlets. The question was, if you didn't hear, what are my thoughts on bulking and cutting? And for those of you who don't know what that means, bulking is you're trying to gain weight. Cutting means you're trying to decrease your body fat. So you're trying to lose weight. I don't think you should do it. This is another thing, like speed, that I was really hung up on for a while. And at your age and your body composition, this is gonna sound harsh, you don't have enough muscle on you guys yet to cut, right? Because like, why do people cut or like try to lose weight? Usually they want to look more defined. Okay, they want to or be smaller. But what happens, especially with training and at your age, you guys are still growing. You're growing, I'm still growing. You grow until like your early to mid 20s. If you are not eating enough to fuel your bodies, you're not going to be able to recover properly. You're not going to grow big muscles. And big muscles help us produce force, and they help us make those tackles, and they help us decrease our risk of injury because our body can handle the hits that we're taking. And so when it comes to nutrition and when it comes to fueling your body, we need all three macronutrients: protein, carbs, and fat. What I want you guys to think about in regards to food is that, am I eating enough protein, because protein builds muscle? Am I eating enough carbs, because carbs fuel my performance? And then fat takes care of itself. So you're not worried about that. Okay? So when you eat your meals, just try to make them as balanced as possible. Eat till you're full, eat till you're content, and then just go on from there. So at breakfast, piece of protein, like maybe a palm to a hand size. That could be eggs, could be egg whites. I guess it's really ham, bacon. Those are proteins that typically happen at breakfast. Lunchtime, whether it's a salad, whether it's a sandwich, whether it's pasta, have some sort of protein source in there. Same thing for dinner. Does that kind of answer your question? And I'm going to reiterate that I don't think you guys, I'm going to try to word this very carefully. I want you to focus on fueling your bodies rather than trying to hit a specific weight on the scale or look a certain way, because if you train hard and you fuel your body properly, the rest usually sorts itself out. And if you have more concerns with something like that, don't try to do it on your own. Like, talk to a coach, talk to a nutritionist, reach out to me, and I'll help you, because there's ways that you can kind of do both. But bulking and cutting, try to get that out of your brain. That's like a bodybuilding style way of thinking, or one thing like rugby athletes. Does that make sense? Can I kind of hopefully covered that?
I personally feel like some issues and like I think I was like
Yep.
no.
So, if you have to take something like Adderall, I've had some friends who had to take that and it messes with their eating habits. At that point, you're just trying to do the best with what you can. That's kind of what we're trying to do with all of this, right? We're trying to train as optimally as we can with what we've got to work with. So if you can only eat 1, maybe 2 meals a day, just make them really solid meals. Something that's gonna make you feel good, it's gonna get the nutrients you need in, and it's gonna fuel your body. Cool? Anything else? Nutrition, strength? What are examples of high intensity training? Let's say maybe 10 to 30 seconds of work with either like a 1-to-1 work rest ratio. So say you're with a buddy and you have a tackle sheet, like a rugby pad. You can do like burpee, hit the pad, like drive 2, 3, burpee, hit the pad, drive 2, 3. Do that 10 seconds, rest 20. And then all of a sudden, all right, 20 seconds is up. That does not feel like 20 seconds. And then you're up, hitting it again. Do that 3 to 6 times. Rest. Do it again, call it good. Right? High intensity training, you can, there's a lot of this good information out there. It's short, it's sweet, gets your heart rate jacked, and then you're done. Okay? Do that 1 or twice a week. You should be on top of practices where you're already getting your heart rate up. You should be solid.
Like the day we have to be the day of the game.
On the days leading up to the game and a day of the game, what would I recommend for eating? Don't switch it up. So if you eat relatively the same thing every day, 2 days before the game, don't be like, I'm gonna try this new Chinese place. That could probably jack you up, and we don't want that. So keep it the same. Carbohydrates, especially the 2 days before the game, don't go crazy. It's not your excuse to dig out on pasta and garlic bread like I used to do. Okay, it's just maybe do 1 extra piece of garlic bread. It's not the whole thing. And then day of game, you just want to do what feels good for you. I know I have a teammate who used to not eat at all before games because this one time, this one food didn't sit well with her. She played really bad, and she was like, I'm not eating at all. And she didn't eat at all for years. But now, a food that sits well with her is ramen. So she'll eat ramen for breakfast and then go play rugby. But it works for her. And she's a badass. And she crushed it. And it works. I probably couldn't eat ramen. I would be also too scared to try to eat ramen the day before a game. So just do what sits well on your stomach. Usually you'll learn this as you continue playing and as your playing style and bodies evolve. Maybe I ate not enough before, you're starting to get a little like those hunger cramps or lightheaded. You feel it when you go to dinner. Or maybe you ate too much and you're I'm feeling slow, I'm feeling sluggish. You start to learn that. But if you kind of keep your routine the same, you're usually good. If you are that busy, yeah, I would say, so if you guys need here, if you're training so much with other sports on top of rugby, and you don't have really any free time, it's is that enough, and do you need the extra stuff? I'd probably say you don't need extra conditioning, you still need to find time to go to the weight at least once. Something that's different now than when I played sports in high school about 10 years ago is that you guys are playing a lot more year round of everything, right? So you're kind of always getting conditioning work in. You're always at practice working hard, you're getting that in. So of all the things to focus on, probably your last thing.
the strength component is huge, especially being young female athletes, and especially playing rugby. So if you are so busy that you're like, man, I can only go like I only have like 20 minutes. Go to the gym, get a few sprints, lift something heavy, and get out of there. Cool? Your favorite? Boxing? Do you want to box?
I mean, like, no, like,
Like what it trains?
what kind of
I would say that's more under the conditioning aspect and muscular endurance. It's also very specific, right? So conditioning can be very specific. So if you took a world-class rugby athlete and you put them in a boxing ring, they're gonna get gas because they're not used to that type of exposure. And if you took a world-class boxer and you put them on a rugby pitch, one, they wouldn't know what they're doing, but two, they would also get gassed because it's a different style. So with your conditioning, I try to tell you guys make it as like sport specific as possible, right? Off season, if you want to box, go for it, right? It's a good general physical health stuff. And the closer you get to the season, just make it a little bit more sport specific. I think I have time for a few more questions. Yeah? Okay. Anyone got any more? Or are we done? You're putting me in a really tough spot here. Okay, so the question was, if you are in season and you are given workouts, should you do those workouts and stop the workouts you're currently doing, do the workouts you're currently doing and not doing those, or do both? I wouldn't say do both. I would say if it's a team-led thing, you're gonna do it with your team. Like that really comes first, is like building up that camaraderie, that team cohesion, and doing the workouts with your team. If it's not team-led and they're just giving you a packet, be like, here you go. This is when you use your, I'm gonna go back to my notes from Coach Shenny at Polar Bear Rugby Camp, and I'm gonna compare what this workout looks like to what she said that workout should look like. And if it looks relatively similar, go for it. If it's like just a list of exercises that you do for 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and you just like jumping jacks, squats, and you're just going for like circuit style stuff, maybe you're like, respectfully, I'm gonna leave that packet to the side and I'm gonna stick to what I'm doing. Okay?
I think this is
Yep. Yep. Okay. Guys. Yep. Yeah. Thanks. So the question was, if you are playing multiple sports and you are given multiple workouts by those sports, which one should you kind of do? I think it kind of depends on which one's the primary sport that you're doing currently and the time of year. So hockey and rugby, you said. I'm assuming it's going to be the end of the rugby season, the beginning of hockey season. Opposite. Okay, so it's the end of hockey season, beginning of rugby season. End of hockey season, you're going to playoffs. Right, I would probably stick with those workouts because at that point in time, you made a commitment to the hockey team, right? And so you're going to the playoffs. What's the goal of the playoffs? To win! Yeah, I'm glad we can all be on the same page of that, right? And what's the secondary goal? To feel good, right? And to like not get hurt. So, and to have fun, right? So you're gonna do the training sessions that's going to lead you to win and to stay injury free. Especially if you're ending one sport and starting another one. The workouts of the sport that's starting are probably going to be more intense than the workouts of the sport that's ending, right? Because this priority right now is winning. This priority down here is preparing to win. Okay, so stick with the win. Last question. That's a great clarifying question. Your workouts, your strength training will be high intensity. It will be high effort, it will be hard. Your conditioning is where you want to have more separation between high intensity and low intensity. So just because you have a really hard practice or you have to run a lot for track or something, doesn't mean that you can't go really hard in the gym. Okay, you just have to make sure you're trying to lift heavy on a really good floor. Does that make sense? And again, it doesn't need to be long. 30 minutes to an hour in the gym, you're good to go. Awesome. All right.
Guys, big round of applause for Jeffrey.
Thank you all. Again, if you have my packets, you can follow me on Instagram, _Gamester with a Z. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Perfect. Thank you guys.